Thomas Jefferson developed George Mason's idea of freedom of religion with his Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom. This document stated that all people should be free to worship as they please. The really neat thing about this document is that it is the first time that religious freedom is protected by law. This too was later incorporated into the Bill of Rights in the First Amendment, which guarantees religious freedom. Again, this is way cool. Another very important Virginian in the development of individual liberty was James Madison. This future President of the United States kept very detailed notes during the Constitutional Convention. He was the author of the Virginia Plan, which proposed a federal government of three separate branches: a legislative branch, to make law, an executive branch to carry out the laws, and a judicial branch to ensure that the rule of law is upheld. This plan became the foundation for the structure of the new government. Madison was instrumental in engineering the compromises over the difficult issues that faced the delegates. James Madison later authored much of the Bill of Rights. The next point that you need to understand is that the concepts of democracy define and shape the meaning of citizenship. In other words, what it means to be a citizen, how one should act, one's duties and responsibilities, is all based on the concept of democracy. Some of the fundamental concepts of democracy include the idea that all individuals have a fundamental worth and dignity, so they are entitled to life, liberty and due process under the law. Equality is another concept that is rooted in democracy. All persons must be entitled to equal rights and treatment before the law. The idea of majority rule is also an important concept. This idea is manifested in elections. The will of the majority is a fundamental feature of the American system. Other concepts within the U.S. system include the rights of individuals to be protected from oppression. The idea of compromise is also a democratic concept, along with the belief in individual freedom. This is the idea that all people are free, equal, and independent.
During the Revolutionary War, delegates from the 13 states met in Philadelphia and formed the Continental Congress to lead the nation. But they wanted to set up a permanent national government too. So in 1777, Congress approved the Articles of Confederation. This document set up a national government to make the laws and deal with foreign nations. But Congress made this central government weak because the members wanted the states to have more power. As a result, the government could not enforce its laws, regulate trade between the states, or even collect taxes. Over the years, the government grew weaker, and unrest in the states grew stronger. In western Massachusetts, Daniel Shays and 1,000 angry farmers tried to seize weapons from a state warehouse in 1786. Although the state militia put down Shays' rebellion, it scared many Americans. They worried that without a strong government, the nation might not survive the next uprising. So most of the states sent delegates to Philadelphia to revise the Articles of Confederation and make the government stronger. Although the purpose of the meeting was to change the Articles of Confederation, many delegates argued that it was necessary to create an entirely new form of government. Virginia delegate James Madison wrote a plan for a central government with 3 separate branches. This division was meant to ensure that no single branch of government had too much power. This power-sharing system is called checks and balances. An executive branch, headed by the president, would carry out the laws. A judiciary would settle disputes, and a newly formed Congress made of 2 houses would make the laws. Not all the delegates agreed with Madison's plan, though. One main obstacle was the number of representatives each state would have in Congress. The small states wanted every state to have the same number of representatives, while the larger states wanted representation based on each state's population. Finally, the delegates agreed that each state would receive the same number of members in one house, the Senate, but that the number of members in the House of Representatives would be based on a state's population. The delegates made other compromises too, but after weeks of debate, they at last agreed on the final document, the Constitution of the United States. On September 17, 1787, the delegates signed the Constitution. For it to become law, though, the Constitution had to be ratified by the states. Some states approved the Constitution quickly, but others resisted because they thought it gave the federal government too much power. A political battle took place in New York. There, Alexander Hamilton and others published newspaper articles explaining why the country needed the Constitution. These articles, which became known as the Federalist Papers, helped persuade New Yorkers to approve the Constitution. Many states criticized the Constitution for not protecting the basic freedoms people had fought for during the American Revolution. Supporters of the Constitution agreed to add a Bill of Rights that would protect those freedoms. Once the Constitution was approved, a new government was formed. It approved the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. They became the Bill of Rights, which guarantees freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and many of the other rights that Americans enjoy to this day.
When the Constitution was debated, the debate was not about the rights of the individual, but instead it was about the power of the national government. These arguments became virulent during the ratification process. 9 states out of 13 were needed to approve the Constitution for it to become law. As a result, 2 sides emerged. The Anti-Federalists were suspicious of strong federal government. They wanted a Bill of Rights that would protect the fundamental freedoms of the individual. Against them were the Federalists. They believed that a strong central government would be the best way to protect individual freedoms. The Federalists wrote a series of essays that supported the adoption of the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you for listening. I hope to be able to talk to you again sometime soon. Until then, goodbye.